All right, you're live, Carlos.
All right. All right. Well, welcome everybody that's joining us here on Zoom and live on Facebook. I want to give everybody a welcome here to our July normal meeting. Our agenda for tonight, our theme for tonight is staying active in the interim. And I think it's important to reflect on how we can stay active in terms of our activism and our education with the legislative session just having happened to have ended not too long ago. In terms of what our agenda is in terms of marijuana reform. Now, that being said, our agenda here consists of a number of speakers, and just to go through a brief rundown of each of them, and then we'll go ahead and introduce our first speaker and get started there. We're gonna have Stephen Carter, we're gonna have Austin Zamarihi, we're gonna have Dave Winnicky, and then rounding us off, we're gonna have our executive director, Jack Spinkel. She's going to go ahead and go over our new meeting schedule. She's going to address some questions that may come through in the chat throughout our time here together. And then she'll go ahead and close out our meeting for us there as well. So with that said, I want to go ahead and again, give everybody a big welcome to our July meeting. And I want to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. It's going to be Stephen Carter. And Stephen and I are actually going to have a back and forth. It's going to be more of a conversational tone. So you're going to notice us jumping back and forth here in this conversation. And as I introduce Stephen, you know, he's going to go ahead and talk a little bit about his background, and then we'll go from there. So Stephen, the floor is yours, man.
Hi, Carlos. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah, so we're going to kind of talk about what we're going to be doing in the interim to stay active. But first I wanted to talk a little bit about what brought me into all of this. I started doing this stuff back in 2009 whenever I got involved with a NORML chapter here in Waco, and I ended up moving up, doing more and more. I found that it was meaningful to me to go out and do things in the community that were helpful, educate people about this important issue. We even adopted a highway and picked up trash, so it was more about community overall. And served as secretary and then deputy director. And at one point, a funny story here. Back in 2009, it wasn't always popular to be advocating for this issue. And we picked the highest traffic corner in town. And we went out there and we had a sign wave, and everybody was great for it. They loved it. People were honking, coming up, talking to us. A few local news outlets came up, interviewed us, got interviewed by the local paper. And then I went into work the next morning, and I was strolling into the break room to get me a cup of coffee. And I happened to look over there at the break room table, and someone had taken the local newspaper and laid it all open, and there my picture was from the rally from the day before. And I was a little concerned, because I didn't tell everyone at work. I try to keep my work and my personal life separate. But come to find out, a lot of people had seen that and they were cool with it. So it was great. It was very reaffirming to know that these good people out there were on board with this sort of stuff. And it kind of gave me the confirmation that I should go and I should keep doing this stuff. And so, that kind of led into some other things. I, founded Texas Cannabis Report. We weren't getting good press. Everything was a joke. You couldn't get a news article or a segment on the local news without it being the butt of a joke. And so I wanted to change that. And Carlos knows what I'm talking about. He's sitting there shaking his head.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, we kind of got beyond that. And so I was able to retire Texas Cannabis Report. And then I came on board with Texas NORML, I think it was back in 2018. And then I, worked my way up and became an advisor on the board, an officer, and now director. And, Carlos, when did you get involved in all of this?
Yeah, so much like you, I kind of like, I don't want to say stumbled my way into it, but yeah, I gradually got more and more involved. For me personally, this goes back to when I was in grad school. I was working on my master's degree in history, and at the time, I was going to work on nothing related to drug law reform, nothing related to marijuana law reform, nothing like that. I was going to focus on Mexican American identity post World War II, because again, I mean, my grandfather was a World War II vet, and that just fascinated me, that LULAC, Mexican American generation post World War II. So I was going to do a big study on that. But then I remember seeing a documentary. I don't remember exactly what the title was. I remember seeing it on Netflix. And I was right around the time in my program where, you know, you had to either decide to like, okay, you're going to write a thesis on something, or you're going to go through with like a comprehensive exam. And this documentary was on the war on drugs. And there was one line that really stuck out there with me. And I, you know, it really related to cannabis overall as a whole. And that line was, you know, the war on drugs, it's not really about the drugs. It has everything to do with everything else. You know, there's racial component to this, there's a class component to this. There is a, you know, a prison industrial complex component to this, if you will. And that really fascinated me. And, you know, I'm from the Rio Grande Valley, and even today, you know, that's ground zero for the war on drugs. And all I had to do was look around to see evidence of that failure everywhere where I lived. You know, down there, you've got like every major federal alphabet agency, along with every state alphabet law enforcement agency down there. And, you know, that feeling of a police state and the encroachment on your personal liberties and rights, that's very real. So that just really opened the door for me. And
Well, I'm sure you noticed that it had a big effect on the community overall. It wasn't just
oh
the
yeah,
people who were being arrested or who were enforcing the law. Everyone was getting caught up in it, whether directly or indirectly, right?
yeah, absolutely, right. So right, those are the residual effects of the war on drugs. Again, it catches, it's a big dragnet that really loops so many innocent people in it, right? Again, you know, I can count on, with double digits in the span of about 2 to 3 years, how many times I was pulled over, either by state or federal law enforcement, intensely searched, all sorts of accusations being pulled. And mind you, I'm a very respectful person, right? My father himself, he's a retired federal law enforcement agent. So, you know, I've got nothing but respect for law enforcement. But even then, it did feel, it was a big encroachment on, you know, people's personal liberties. And again, you know, this is coming from someone who, you know, has a rough understanding of what the law is and what rights are. And unfortunately, with a lot of people down there where I come from, that basis of understanding just isn't there. So it, you know, for lack of a better term, the Rio Grande Valley for the longest time has been used as a political football, by all sides, right? I mean, everybody takes a slice here, and especially with the war on drugs. So, you know, you fast forward to my program there, I end up writing a thesis that critiques the federal prohibition of marijuana and its maintenance of it from, you know, the times of Harry Anslinger in the 30s all the way out to Reagan's intensification of the war on drugs through the mid 80s. And in doing so, you know, at the very end, I was asked, you know, what are you going to do with this? And I had no clue, right? I mean, it was a great thing to study. It was a great thing to research. It was fascinating. There was a lot of big points to be made, a lot of things that, you know, would anger someone. But I didn't know what I was going to do with it. So that got me thinking. And I eventually teamed up with an Iraq War veteran, Javier Tobillas, and a mother with a child who has severe disabilities, Cristina Ollarvides. And together we formed a working board of directors of about 8 to 9 individuals who were like-minded around the cause of cannabis reform and drug law reform overall as a whole. And we formed RGV NORML. And that went strong from 2015 through roughly 2018, around the time that I moved to Austin. And much like you, Stephen, I came on board with the board as an advisor, and then as a director in my role currently as secretary of the board. And that's pretty much my story in a nutshell. I really didn't intend on going into this field of study, but again, much like you, there was, you know, a window of opportunity there. There was an opportunity for education, and yeah, that really explains to how I got to where I'm at here as well. So some good parallels there, man.
You never really know where life's going to take you, and
Yeah.
you know, along the way, you know, these things kind of, they work their way into your life, and you can either choose to take it and run with it, or go a different direction. And you know, I'm certainly happy that you chose to, you know, come to Texas NORML and work with us. I'm so happy that I get to work with all these people at Texas NORML. It's a lot of great people, and we do a lot of good work.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, Stephen, I think I think we want to talk about the legislative session a little bit here. I know you had a
Yes.
big hand over the last couple of sessions. Why don't you go ahead and talk about that a little bit with this one?
So, I've been involved on a local level and somewhat on a state level for a good number of years, and then 2019 I really stepped into a larger role at the state level. And I started working with a lot of coalition groups to get patient testimony taken care of, uh, medical professional testimony, caregivers, all these people who they had a story to tell, but they weren't really sure how to tell it and how to tell it effectively. So I took those skills that I gained from doing Texas Cannabis Report and all that up till that point, and I started helping them do that, and it was very rewarding. And went on to do you know research, policy analysis, drafted press releases, stuff like that. All the little writing stuff in the background, administrative work. A lot of people love to be out front leading the fight, but every good person out front needs someone behind them doing the work to make sure that the show that they put on, to so to speak, is flawless. The use of the concert analysis. You got all your tech people in the background. The front end doesn't go without the back end, not effectively, anyways. So I'm very proud to be a part of that. And earlier this year we had a lot more people who submitted testimony. We had a lot more legislation to keep track of. Um, and one of the things that I saw is that a lot of people had trouble keeping track of everything. And we had a lot of ask to contact your legislators and talk to them, tell them what you think, how you feel. And people are like, well, how do I know who to contact? So I put together this video that shows you how to contact your rep. Well, it shows you how to find out who represents you on both the state and federal level, and how to find their contact information. And I think a big part of what we do is enabling people who live in Texas to do the work that needs to be done to let their legislators know that cannabis is an important issue to them. So I think that's just a major aspect, a critical aspect here, and that's what we do at Texas NORML, is provide people with those tools. And believe me, I've been doing politics for 13 years now, and it's frustrating. It can be very frustrating trying to find publicly available information. I'm sure that you've tried to find publicly available information, and it was just, God, it felt like
It's not
dragging
easy.
a stone underwater.
Yeah, yeah, it's not easy. Sometimes it's not easy,
Yeah.
especially DPS. So yeah.
So, one of the things, it kind of leads into, what can I do to stay active during the interim? Well, uh, in between legislative sessions, which, we have a special session coming up, but after the legislative session ends, kind of the campaign season begins. And that's one of the most critical parts, is staying in contact with your elected officials, even if you don't like them, but especially if you love them or even like them. Uh, Let them know that cannabis is a campaign issue. It needs to be a campaign issue for them, and do it politely. And anytime that the opportunity arises, you want to bring it up in a public capacity. Hey, I'm a constituent. I want to see this issue of cannabis addressed. What is your stance on this issue? And raise it on their social media pages. Whenever they have events, go and raise the issue there. Ask questions. Find other people at these events who seem interested and talk to them as well. A big part is finding these candidates who support this issue and getting them elected. So, right now, after this meeting, you could go and start finding people who are already announcing that they want to run for office in your area. Now, a lot of times people have not announced just yet, because filing doesn't open for another, I think, 2 months, and then it runs through December. And during that time, a lot of people are going to announce. And so you'll go and you'll talk to these people, and you'll ask them questions, and you want to find these candidates who support the issue of cannabis, and you want to support them, you want to talk about them, volunteer for them, at least show up to their events and talk about it, financially support them if you can. Um, it's essential that we support the candidates who support this issue, because that is what's going to help send us over the top here. Um, it you just have to go and vote in the primaries. You always have to vote in the primaries. That's where a lot of elections are settled. And then if there are runoffs for the primaries, vote in those, and of course vote in the general election as well. So staying active in the interim means staying in contact with candidates who are running for all these various positions. The legislature is good, Congress is good, but also city council, county commissioners, all these positions. I think we have a lot of officials up for re-election this year at the statewide level, or next year. Governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, all these positions. So definitely be looking out for these candidates and asking them how they think.
No, definitely. Yeah. And that, again, just to emphasize to everybody else, right? And to all our viewers out there. Yeah, you're definitely going to want to stay on top of your local races, where your candidates stand, stay informed. And again, on that note, a quick plug for, one of our coalition organizations, Foundation for an Informed Texas. If you're looking for educational materials, and things that'll keep you sharp between here and the next legislative session, I'd recommend checking them out. I know myself, along with Vanessa Akins and a number of individuals, have worked on a number of projects with them in terms of breaking down talking points that you may hear at the Capitol to dissuade you from a pro-cannabis stance, and real practical things that you can use for the upcoming legislative session, because it doesn't hurt to keep your toolbox sharp.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that kind of pivots to the point that a lot of people are like, well, I might not necessarily have the time to reach out to these candidates, or they're not giving me the answers I want, or it's complicated. It's very valid to say this is complicated, because it can be. And so that's why Texas NORML puts out a voter guide every year. And that's something that we plan to put out again. And that will certainly help you stay active in the interim. And I think one of the other big things that you can do, maybe one of the more important things, if cannabis is a big issue for you, which I assume that if you're watching this live stream, it is, to support Texas NORML. We need members, we need people donating, we need people buying our merchandise, because this funding right here is what helps pay for the voter guides, the workshops that we do, all of the outreach. Take Facebook, for example. Right now, we're streaming live on Facebook on the Texas NORML page. And we have almost 200,000 people who have liked our page. However, we're only reaching a fraction of those people. And so it's not free to reach all these people that we need to reach, to mobilize, to get the activity that we need to get us across the finish line. So it takes money to advertise. It takes money to pay professional people to do the things that we can't do on a volunteer basis within the organization. Volunteers are great. I've done a lot of volunteer work in my life, and I'm greatly appreciative of all the volunteers who work with Texas NORML. But sometimes volunteer work just isn't enough for a professional organization to play with the big dogs up there at the state legislature. So we need that funding to help us be effective and be professional. So I would absolutely urge everyone right now to join Texas NORML and buy our merchandise and donate. I know that you don't get any swag or anything whenever you donate, but it's a great thing to do. Your money really goes a long ways. We use it very responsibly.
Absolutely. So again, y'all, some ideas there to stay active in the interim, and again, some outlets there for education and for support. Yeah, Stephen, you have any closing words there?
Oh yeah. So again, I thank everyone for coming. I know that sometimes things seem a little rough. Playing Texas politics is difficult. This is one of the most difficult states to to play this game in, and it's just a matter of being persistent and being diligent, and just showing up and doing the work, and we will get there. I promise you that.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
And thanks for doing this, Carlos.
Hey, absolutely. Well, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate you. And again, keep looking forward to the work that we'll be producing between here and then. All right, so everybody, that was Stephen Carter, director here with Texas NORML. All right, so our next speaker is a well-known individual in the cannabis community. He is a journalist that chronicles events that go on with cannabis in the state and at a national level. He is also a cannabis activist. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Austin Zamarihi. All right, man, the floor is yours. Do your thing, man.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? I'm just, to start off, I'm really honored to be a part of this meeting. You know, as a longtime advocate, I came through and learned everything, you know, at the local and state level because of NORML organizations here in the state. And so I have much gratitude to Jax and the team, Carlos, Stephen. Hearing your dialogue prior to this has been very invaluable. So thank you guys so much always for leading and being a beacon of light for everybody to, you know, advance this cause. We know that those of us who've been around a long time, you know, in Texas dealing with this issue, we understand how difficult it is and how many allies we need to amass to really get this job done. So thank you guys so much for all the work that you do. You know, I represent, you know, I know when Stephen talks about purchasing merch, you know, I love the puff and putt events at Willie's course. And so I've been a longtime supporter. We always try to amplify the voice of not just Texas NORML, but many of the other NORML organizations across the state, and anybody that is dedicated to making the changes necessary. So a little bit about myself. My name's Austin Zamhariri. You know, I've grown, born and raised in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, all over Denton County, Tarrant County, Dallas County, Collin County. You know, I was arrested in 2010 for pretty much possession of what would be considered today legal hemp, but possession of under 2 ounces of marijuana, the standard Class B misdemeanor that we still have on the books today. And that was a very life-changing experience because that really propelled me into the criminal justice system. As somebody who had a clean record, you know, just a couple of speeding tickets that were on my record. And I really got to learn all about what, you know, unjust punishment of something as minuscule as cannabis. And this is back in 2010. Here we are in 2021, and we're still dealing with the issue. But I gained a fair grasp of that, and that really, after cannabis had begun to get legalized across the country, you know, Colorado, Washington State, and then we saw other places, DC, you know, now obviously California. We have several. It seems like I can't even keep up with how many states are legalizing marijuana or are legalizing medical cannabis. But when we took our trip to Colorado, Colorado Springs, Denver area, and we got to explore the legal cannabis market, I was in love. I loved it. I thought that this was the greatest thing ever, and that this is something that I could do with the rest of my life. And, you know, I'll never forget just how just changed of a person I was for this experience of legal cannabis in Colorado. And I had all of these grand plans. I, you know, was ready, you know, when I got back to Texas, I was like, yeah, it's illegal in Texas, but how hard can it be to change the laws there? It can't be that difficult, right? So we came back to Texas. I integrated myself into the community. I got involved. I did the whole playbook. I went to the workshops, as you've mentioned, with Jax, and you know, I showed at the Capitol. I've testified on bills. You know, I took essentially what was a social media construct and turned it into you know, a 501c4 organization at this point. So we're I felt like if I wanted to enjoy the industry and I wanted to see cannabis go from prohibition into a legitimate industry, I wanted to make sure that we were doing that the right way, and that you know, I wanted to be a part of that, and on the breaking, you know, on the top, you know, top edge of doing all that. And it's yeah, it's been, you know, as you know, for any of us who've been there since 2000, you know, Stephen mentioned 2019 is when, you know, he definitely got integrated. You know, that was when we started really seeing, you know, we had the hemp bill, we had HB 3703 that opened up Teacup a little bit more. You know, we've done a lot of things over the years that have opened it up now, and now it's 2021, right? When I started, it was 2016, and it's 2021. We know about Oklahoma and their medical marijuana program. We know about New Mexico, and now they're fully legal. Louisiana has decriminalized. We know New Mexico, or the country of Mexico, Arkansas as well. So Texas is ready to pop. And when we talk about staying active in the interim, it's imperative. You guys really covered a lot of the topics, you know, between now and the next legislative session outside of the special session. There are elections, but at the same time, I would also argue that there's a burgeoning industry that is happening right before our eyes. And we've seen a lot of contentious legislation. Those of us who were here at this last session, we saw contentious legislation regarding issues like D8. We still, I believe, have the smokable hemp ban on injunction, and still waiting for a ruling on that, I believe. So, you know, there's a burgeoning industry happening as far as cannabis and cannabinoids go in the state of Texas, between the hemp program and the Texas Compassionate Use Program. So, you know, I would encourage people to, you know, continue to follow Texas NORML, follow the you know, other coalition partners, and try to stay engaged and ask questions. If you stumble across my organization, you're definitely going to stumble across Texas NORML or many of the other allies that we hold dear to us. So that I would definitely suggest that, you know, even if we have a lot of patients in Texas who are incapable of being able to go out and do public events, you know, we've started doing a monthly public event to really engage the public and get people excited and get people active. So I would encourage people that, you know, if you're a patient, there are live streams, connect with these organizations, you know, reach out to them, and show up where you can, and build relationships. That's what this is all about. This is something that many of my peers here at the Texas NORML organization have always taught me, is just continue building these relationships, whether it's with your legislator or whether it's with your local city council member, your DA, the local organizations who do any kind of criminal justice work here, not just here in DFW, in Austin, San Antonio, El Paso. No matter where you are in Texas, Texas is a big place. It's like 6 countries in one. But no matter where you are, you can definitely make an impact. And we've seen that impact made by many individuals that we are all, you know, associated with or loosely associated with, in Austin and in Dallas, Fort Worth, and in Houston, things that have been changing at the local level as far as cannabis is concerned tends to move a little bit faster. So you guys really covered a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about, and it's just so fantastic because I love all of you, and I'm just so grateful to work alongside many of you. I have a long relationship with many of you, and I, as a community member, look forward to continuing the work and continuing to galvanize the community and provide them the right education, and not just the education, but the steps to move forward and be successful with whatever they're trying to do as far as policy, industry, or culture. And so if you don't have any questions for me, that's all I have for you, Carlos.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So Cody was asking about your organization, Jack Spinhead, named it Texas Cannabis Collective. Can you speak a little bit more to that, Austin? I think some of our viewers are a little bit more curious about your organization there.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. So yes, we are. We started off really as just a Facebook, page that really blew up and gained a lot of following. I used it to really chronicle our adventures in what we were doing at the Capitol in the local area. I've been to many marches, many social events. Going to the Capitol was very big, testifying on bills. This is when I started in 2017. And since then, we turned it into a publication. And from there, really started covering things. I prefaced that with Stephen, who spoke before me. It was a very big inspiration because he's absolutely right. Like it's hard to find solid information, just out there that you're looking for. It really does take a deep dive in, and you have to know the situation on the ground. Fortunately for us, me and my team, we've been on the ground, and so we've been able to cover things. But because of that, we also developed into a huge network of people who were using our social media platforms to develop relationships and create, relationships that really blossom. So we opened things up and started using other social media maneuvers, and we have our website where we do our publication, and so we've decided to transition into a 501c4 to be able to help raise funds and throw events and really celebrate all of the work that has been done to move the needle from where we began in 1915 with this plant all the way to where we are now. We are the bearers of the great responsibility of transitioning this era of prohibition to something that's legal, very much like alcohol. So we celebrate that. We want to celebrate industry, and we celebrate culture. And so now we're doing events. We're working on other community initiatives. We like to do town halls. Really the sky's the limit. I really take that to heart. In the interim, this is where a lot of things get done, because the work doesn't begin the moment the legislative session starts. The work begins when the session has ended and all of the planning and everything goes into effect there, and really getting the community amped and psyched to engage. So that's what we do at my organization. We cover the news. We dab in a little bit of entertainment. We definitely like to explore the industry, and we absolutely 100% share the culture. We've traveled the state from El Paso to the RGV. Carlos, where you're from. We'll be down there again soon. Lubbock, Texarkana, it doesn't matter. Texas, we love all of Texas, and we try to do our best to help represent all of Texas in this unified goal to really transition cannabis into a better place.
Yeah, exactly, Austin. I couldn't put it better myself, man. Yeah, but we just want to thank you again for coming here and speaking your truth and sharing a little bit about your organization and your work in the movement. Really quick, want to give a shout out to Michael in the chat. So he's suggesting a book here for everybody. The book is Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? And again, it provides an awesome framework for how you can shift your messaging and your framing of a pro-cannabis message to those around you and our elected officials. That being said, I just kind of want to build on what Austin was saying as well, and what Michael was suggesting in the chat there. We have to deal with the political reality of where we're at. We're in a conservative state. And regardless of what side of the political aisle we fall on, that's the political reality. And there is a way to do and make a conservative argument for cannabis legalization. There is a way to do this. So again, just a shout out to Michael. Yes, this is a very, very good read, and it talks about framing the messaging with where you're at in the audience that you have. So again, we have to deal with political realities here in the state, and there is a way to do that, and it's the way that we frame our message towards those that we're trying to convince. Because those that are on our side are on our side. It's those that aren't that we have to tailor our message to and frame it from a perspective that would get folks like that to come on board, whoever and wherever they may be. So with that, we're going to go ahead and transition over to our next speaker. Our next speaker is also very well known in the cannabis community. He is a longtime activist, very outspoken on cannabis issues overall as a whole, but specifically about medical issues. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce a fellow director here with Texas NORML, Mr. Dave Winnicky. All right, Dave, floor is yours, man.
Carlos, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Carlos. Thank you for that amazing introduction. And thank you, everybody, listeners and viewers out there for tuning in and paying attention. I have no idea what I could possibly say about what to do in the interim that these fine individuals have not already covered, but that's fine. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll tell you how I personally view the interim time. I also have been arrested for cannabis 3 times now. The first time was in 2007. I had just moved to Austin. I was in Austin for about 2 years. I moved here in 2005. I got arrested in 2007. And then I started looking around for anybody who might be fighting this issue. And I found Texas NORML. I became a member in 2008. I think 2010, probably, I started just volunteering at events, helping out behind the table, helping out at, Flamingo Cantina and at the Reggae Festival and just different things that we were involved in around the town. And then 2013, I believe it was, I was asked to become an officer. I skipped the advisor part. I guess I was already playing the role of advisor without actually having that title. And then I think a year later, maybe a year and a half later, I became a director, and I've been a director ever since. And my first arrest was, it was really frustrating. Well, they're all frustrating, but I was driving home late at night. I say late at night. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I lived in a bad part of town. I drove a really nice car. This cop followed me for about a mile. I saw him in my rearview mirror, saw the lights on top of his car. So I knew I was doing all my P's and Q's, turn signals, complete stops, everything. Dude pulled me over. He said that he ran my plates and I had multiple warrants. I had a traffic stop a year prior to that life had gotten crazy, a bunch of things had happened. I lost a family member, and I let that go. I didn't go pay the ticket. That ticket had 3 citations on it. Those 3 citations turned into warrants. One of those was failure to change my address when I moved to Austin, Texas. But because it said multiple warrants right away, it didn't tell him what those warrants were for. He just pulled me over. and asked me to get out of the car. As soon as I opened up the car door, he grabbed me by the wrist, twisted my arm behind my back, put his elbow into my shoulders or into my back, and pushed me face first up against my vehicle. Kicked my feet apart, patted me down, cuffed me. No, didn't cuff me then. Then he grabs me by the collar and throws me face down on the cop car so that he could cuff me. And then when he ever so gently placed me in the police car. And by that, I mean, he just did one of these numbers and slammed my head up against the barrier inside the patrol car. So I was mad. And all the while, I'm saying yes, sir, no, sir, if I'm saying anything at all. Both of my grandfathers were police officers, so I showed them the absolute most respect. Well, I just stopped talking to this dude once he was beating me up. So yeah, that was my first experience getting arrested for cannabis. He searched my vehicle and found a small little bag in my backseat. Same thing as Austin was talking about, Class B under 2 ounces. So that's my story. It's how I got involved. I was angry and I was determined to get laws changed, and I still am. So the interim process for me, I like to give the analogy, the sports analogy. I like to call it the off season, as they call it in sports. As we all know, in this day and age, there really is no off season. You know, if guys want to make that money and play ball again next year and still have that contract, they got to stay in shape. They got to stay fit. They got to stay working every single day. So do we. No days off. If you notice, if anybody out there is a sports fan, if your team's ever won something big, they likely had to build and get that. And while, yeah, the product was played on the games were played on the field or on the court, however, the product that was put on the field and on the court happened during the offseason. That's when all the trades happen. That's when all the moves happen. Contracts are signed. People are let go. As Steven was talking about in this game as well, sometimes people need to get let go. You know, as he was talking about, we got a big election coming up in 2020. I'm sorry, 2022. I don't know why I said 2020. 2022. A lot of state elections. Governor, lieutenant governor, like you said, attorney general. These are big positions that we absolutely must get involved in those elections. And also, it's all about having conversations. I talk a lot. I talk to everybody. I'm an extrovert. I love conversations. I'll talk to anybody and everybody. So it's talking to your neighbors, your relatives, you know, your church congregation, you know, your Rotary Club members, whoever it is that you're around, talk to them, you know. But also stay involved, stay in conversation with your elected officials. If you've ever, I know a lot of work gets done in the session. A lot of work gets done in the session. Jax, she worked more than anybody I know during the session. Jax, thank you for that, by the way. Thank you again for all the work that you do. If you've ever been to the Capitol during session to talk to your representative or to talk to a staffer, you're lucky if you get 3 minutes, 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a long time, especially if you don't have an appointment. If you have an appointment, you might get 10. During the interim, during the off season, they have a lot more time to have real, genuine conversations with you. You can build a rapport. It's really, really important. Those conversations that happen in session, they're impactful, of course, and we're often talking about one specific bill or two specific bills or whatever it is that's the issue that you came in to talk about. Ours is cannabis. But during the interim, you can have real in-depth conversations about why you feel any cannabis legislation, doesn't matter what the bill is, if it's for progress, if it's given us progress, if it's given us something, that we should be working towards that. Now, obviously, medical, then recreational, you have these different things, but are they different? It's all the same plant, you know? So while Carlos did mention in my introduction that I'm a huge advocate for patients and for medical cannabis, it's all the same plant, it's all medical cannabis. So I will not stop this fight until every Texan has full access to whole plant medicine. And the work happens in the interim. Carlos, thank you very, very much, my friend. Is there anything else you got for me, buddy?
No, man, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? And just want to build on something you said there about talking to, you know, your faith-based people around you. I just want to highlight a couple of organizations for people, because again, the political reality of the state is we do live in a conservative state. So I want to give a shout out to Republicans Against Marijuana Prohibition, RAMP. You know, you can hit them up on their respective social media links and sites and website to get some very effective conservative-based talking points on how you can convey this message of cannabis reform to, you know, our circles, our friends, our family that may have different viewpoints than perhaps our own. Same with those of us that may want to reach out to those around us that are faith-based. There's another organization called Clergy for a New Drug Policy, Clergy for a New Drug Policy. Again, Republicans Against Marijuana Prohibition, RAMP, and Clergy for a New Drug Policy are both coalition partners along with Texas NORML and Foundation for an Informed Texas. So again, right, just recognizing the political reality of the state that we're in, you know, it's very important that the message that we tailor is for the audience that's in front of us, right? Not one that we would imagine is in front of us, and not speaking of those that already support us, but, you know, reaching out to those that may hold different views than us and making the argument from that perspective and framework. Again, Jax just dropped in the chat there some very useful links. Again, we are asking Governor Abbott to include medical cannabis in the special session. He has released by him, I mean Governor Abbott, has released a list of priority items that he wants covered during the special session. Jax will speak more to that, but we are asking for folks to sign a petition asking Governor Abbott to include medical cannabis during this upcoming special session. Again, for those of us that live in the Austin area and are Austin registered voters in the city, there is a petition to decriminalize marijuana in Austin. Currently, the way it stands is it's a cite and release policy. In other words, you would be cite and summons. This would even remove that. Again, Jax will speak more to that in detail right now when we bring her on board. And again, just some more useful links there, including to Austin's website as well. Thank you, Jax, for dropping that in the chat. Holistic Mama asks, is there any links for San Antonio? There is, just look up San Antonio NORML. I know that is led by, oh boy, Jax will probably have to correct me on this, but oh boy. Name
Xander.
Xander, yes, Xander. Yes, but there is San Antonio NORML. And they're there. So go ahead and look them up. So with that said, I'll go ahead and introduce our last speaker. She is the most well-known of the speakers I've introduced. She is our leader, our fearless leader at the Capitol, our fearless leader in all events, and that is our executive director, Jax Finkel. And Jack's going to go ahead and round us off for the evening. She's going to talk about our new meeting schedule. She's going to address any outstanding questions that are out there, and then she'll just go ahead and close us off. So Jax, floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Carlos. So many things are happening right now, actually. So I dropped those links in there so that everybody could have everything all in one spot. But we have a lot of stuff going on. So first of all, I want to talk about our new meeting schedule. So doing this virtual meeting has been so great because we have the people who sign in here on Zoom and we get to interact with you here. We have a bunch of people watching on Facebook, and then we post it to YouTube later, and we're able to have people from all over the country sometimes involved in what we're doing. And so we really wanted to keep that aspect of this new situation. But we really miss seeing everybody and being at Flamingo Cantina. Like, it's amazing. And I know most of you know that. So what we decided we'd do is we'd continue doing the monthly meetings virtually so that we can have a lot of great education, have as much inclusion as possible, and then we do quarterly socials at Flamingo Cantina. So our next virtual meeting is going to continue to be on the first Wednesday of the month, and it'll be on, let me double check that I have the right date, August 4th. So that'll be the next time that we'll be here in this virtual space. But you can join us on August 18th at 8 p.m. We'll be at Flamingo Cantina. Mau Mau Chaplains will be playing. And if you guys came to the Signee Die Party, you probably had some of that amazing Slow Flow ice cream that had CBG in it. They're going to be there with us as well because it's going to be hot, you guys. It's August in Texas. But as you guys know, the Flamingo has done a few renovations. So there's a lot of really great airflow in there now. And they've redone the patio. It looks really great. So I hope everyone will come and join us and we can see each other for the first time at Flamingo. And, you know, Dave, am I right? Is it a year and a half? I want to say it's a year and a half. Too long.
March of 2020 was the
I
last
think, yeah,
one.
we held that meeting and then over spring break, everything closed. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So I put the link in the comments for you guys where you can, you know, get all the information on all the upcoming virtual meetings and in-person socials. So Carlos mentioned two petitions. We have two things going on. And so what I want to talk about first is the state level thing. So we just finished the legislative session. You know, last month we had our recap and we discussed about the medical improvements that have been made and the patient protections that passed, as well as like a lot of really great mile markers that we made. But we also knew that special session was coming and probably multiple special sessions. And so proactively with our allies at the Republicans Against Marijuana Prohibition, RAMP, Texas GOP is how you can look them up. We put together a petition to the governor to add pain back because pain was removed from 1535, though there was a lot of support for it and also a lot of information showing that no one has ever died from, you know, marijuana overdose. There's never been a fatal overdose, according to both the CDC and the DEA. And, you know, 45 or 50,000 Americans die every year from opioid overdoses. And actually, I'd like to say Texas Compassionate Cultivation put out a really great visual showing how many Texans have passed from fatal opioid overdoses. And so this is literally life-saving legislation. And so we want to make sure that it can be included. So I think actually Stephen mentioned in the beginning that the governor has set the agenda. Currently, it does not include medical cannabis. He can choose to add anything at any time, so we're not going to stop trying. We're going to continue to collect signatures and potentially also escalate our engagement so that maybe we're holding a press conference, having some doctors deliver the signatures. We'll have to see exactly how that unfolds over the next 30 days because the special session does start tomorrow. So it's happening very quickly. Michael wants to link to that visual. I do not have it on me right now. If maybe Stephen had a moment to look on their Facebook page, that would be amazing. But otherwise, you can go to Texas Original Compassionate Cultivation's Facebook page for that information. So you will see the link that I put in there to the petition. Please make sure that you sign it. We've almost reached our goal last time that I've checked, but I would love to surpass it and have way more signatures than what we were aiming for. So the other petition that we're working together with some people with is the Austin petition to essentially codify a resolution that the city council passed. So if you remember back in January of 2020, Texas NORML works with a bunch of coalition. We had a local coalition that we worked with to make it where there could not be any arrests or citations for personal possession of cannabis. And so that also had a portion of it that disallowed any funding to be spent on THC testing or any personnel time at all. So $0 for cannabis. And recently, Austin has fulfilled that, 0 citations sometime over this last year. I forget exactly when it was, but that was really great news. And what this petition does is it takes that resolution. So a resolution is something that the city council has told administrators that they want them to do, but there's a little bit of discretion for those administrators to decide if they really want to do it or not. As we recall with Chief Manley being like, I don't think so. And city council being like, but you will though. So what this petition would do would essentially make it a city ordinance. So it is official, and in order to reverse it, would take a much, more dramatic way to try to reverse it. So it basically would make it where you cannot have a Class B or a Class C criminal arrest or summons or citation or anything in Austin, and also that they couldn't try to give you, paraphernalia instead of a cannabis charge, just that they're not going to allow it. So that is a really great petition that is going around. It's a local organization with two former candidates. I'm not sure if they'll be running again, spearheading it. And so we are happy to be able to pass that on to you guys. So if you are a registered Austin voter, you can click that link and you can download the PDF and you can sign it. You can even collect some signatures and send it in. So make sure that you definitely check that out. So Carlos, you were talking a little bit about during the interim, what are our opportunities? And there are a few more things that I do want to expound on. We talked about elections and that the voter guide will be coming out for the primary in spring of 2022. So watch out for that. But I also wanted to point out that there's likely to be another special session having to do with redistricting. So the census is going to be, we're going to be getting census information sometime in the fall. And so expect, maybe in September or October for there to be another special session for redistricting. And that has to happen all before the filing deadline for candidates in December. And so that's going to be, and also maybe someone could correct me, but I feel like we still haven't even finished the lawsuit from last redistricting and we're redistricting again. But that's cool. We're just going to roll with it. I'm so thankful that redistricting wasn't during the regular session, or it just would have made our issue just so much more divisive. So we'll take that. And also, I wanted to say that there's going to be some regulatory advocacy opportunities. So as you guys know, the legislative process is like the skeleton. It's the law, it's the statute. But regulators, they put on all of the organs and the meat and the skin to make it a functioning program. And there will be some discussion with the Department of State Health Services, likely also with TDA, and be ready for more conversation about Delta 8 at any moment as well. So prepare for that type of regulatory advocacy. And, interim charges, that's something that the legislature does, is they put together these charges on different topics, whether it be something like bail reform or let's talk about legalization. I would love to see an interim charge on that. But there are likely to be some interim charges. And so hopefully we will have some on the docket with that. And let's see, what else did I want to talk about? I feel like there was one more thing. Relationship building. I feel like Dave really was talking about, the off season, and that's the relationship building time. So that, during the session, they're calling you and they're saying, hey, I need these resources. And you are, their go-to person. I have to say it was really great to get calls and emails from staffers being like, hey, I need information on this and that. And I could, reach out into the network, because we have such a great network, and find them the information that they needed to make great decisions. And I think that that's why we were able to carry the water, if you will, so much further than previously. I did want to mention a couple things that I made notes of, both questions and actual things. So Texas Cannabis Collective, their next in-person meeting is actually going to be the pre-party for the Lucky Leaf Expo that's happening up in Dallas next weekend. So I just wanted to give them a shout out for that. I'm checking things off on my piece of paper. And then I also wanted to say, Stephen was saying 2022, it's a bunch of important elections. It's everybody, because it's redistricting, it's everybody. Representatives, state representatives, they're every 2 years, but usually senators alternate because they have 4-year terms, same with the lieutenant governor and the governor. So It's everybody. It's a big election cycle. So get ready for those voter guides coming out, making sure that you're helping people get registered to vote. So stay tuned for that. And I also wanted to say that a lot of people are retiring. And there's a lot of people that are going to try to run up, which means like go to the next race up. So there's going to be potential for a lot of changes. And so engaging in this campaign season is going to be really important for setting the stage for whoever that next legislator might be in that district. So if you're in a district where someone is not running for re-election, you have a lot of good work to do. So there's a few questions. Oh, the Dallas March. That was the last thing that I wanted to say. There is a march in Dallas on, I think it's Saturday the 24th, and I'll be up there. It's going to be in the afternoon. You can go to DFW NORML's page and find information out about that, but I wanted to give them a shout out because DFW NORML really did a lot to support us during the session, even though it was a long drive away and it was kind of a really weird session with it being a pandemic. We really appreciated them helping making sure that we could do all of the printing that we needed to do and get all the things that we needed done. So big thanks to them. And the last thing I wanted to say is there were a few questions on here. Are we ready for that, Carlos? Yep. Okay. If anybody who's still on wants to hop on, Dave, Stephen, I see Austin had to dip out, but if you guys want to join in on this. So there was a question on here about pregnancy and THC. So if you gentlemen don't mind, I'd be happy to answer that question. You know, someone is curious about, you know, I'm pregnant, I use cannabis medically, you know, what is the deal with that? And it's a hot button issue, women and pregnancy in general. Oh, Austin, you're back. Hey, bro. You're watching on Facebook, weren't you? I see you. But, you know, in general, women, you know, and anything during pregnancy can be very controversial, you know, coffee, a glass of wine, all of these things, right? And so whenever we're talking about cannabis and its safety profile, you know, there are doctors who believe that it is safer than some other medicines that people can be taking. So I think it's extremely important that if you are pregnant and if you are fortunate enough to have a really wonderful relationship with either your midwife, your OBGYN, or whoever your physician is, if you feel comfortable talking to them about it, that's going to be extremely important. I know a lot of people use it for nausea, but that being said, the question was pregnancy and testing at birth. So that can be a big problem because if they test the meconium, which is the first poop that you ever take, it allegedly has, you know, all the way back to about 4 to 5 months of development, what the child has been kind of ingesting through their system. So it could potentially show that you have had THC and your child could be taken from you. So that being said, there is a cost benefit analysis that mothers have to make there. And so the best recommendation would be if you have an official condition that you can qualify in the program, then that would give you the ability to say, nope, this is a medicine I'm prescribed and allowed to take. And that would give you a defense for that, right? Otherwise, I would just tell you about some of the further risks if you happen to be, you know, on state care, Medicare. You can be forced to take a drug test without even your consent or your knowledge. So it is something that, you know, women and parents in general just have to be extremely careful with in Texas. And hopefully as the program becomes more robust and we learn a little bit more about the interaction with the plant and mothers, that can be something that feels less stressful for women whenever you're already so stressed out from pregnancy. So did anything that I say not make sense there? Any questions about the pregnancy and THC for all of you guys that are on here? Okay, hearing none.
Makes sense to me.
Like, sounds about right. I was a doula for many years, so I've been to quite a few births, and I know that there's a lot of different holistic and medical routes that people can take when they're going through pregnancy. So I just wanted to discuss that and discuss some of the risks that are associated with it. You can find a lot of benefits out there as well. And I will also note that whenever a woman is breastfeeding, your body has an endocannabinoid system, and it makes these endogenous cannabinoids from itself. And so whenever you are producing your first milk, which is called colostrum, and that milk comes out, it's really rich in these endocannabinoids, and that's what makes the baby hungry. So the baby goes from practicing suckling in the womb, and for what? Just for practice. It just is fun, right? But then when they come out, they're like, oh, y'all, I'm hungry. This is really good. So just another interesting thing about how the plant interacts with our body. All right. So let me double check and see if I have any other questions. Were there any other things that you guys wanted to bring up in the meantime? I'm checking the comments on Facebook real quick.
I don't know that we can, stress enough that getting involved in next year's elections is extremely important, and not just the general election, but the primaries as well.
Very true. Oh, Lauren wants to know any thoughts on Ground Game Texas. So Ground Game Texas is the organization that's spearheading the Austin petition to codify that resolution into a city ordinance that would essentially decriminalize cannabis. And, I had a meeting with Mike Siegel today to talk about it and to learn a little bit more about, what's their strategy, what's going on. And, overall, I think that I supported the resolution, and I support, the idea of this petition. And I think that Austin is a great place to try it out. There is a short timeline though. And so if we don't meet the timeline, that will have to extend for the signature collection. It's difficult enough to collect that many signatures in a short amount of time, let alone, I'm hesitant to say post-pandemic, but opening pandemic, if that makes sense. But yeah, so that's my thought on them. They're a newer organization. I think they might focus on other issues as well, but as far as this goes, I think it's pretty good. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Austin, that we didn't cover?
You guys, you guys don't really leave any cracks that need to be filled in.
Well, it's because I roped these people in. Carlos and Steven, whenever, Carlos was moving up here and Waco NORML was kind of not really active anymore, I was like, so what you doing? And definitely roped them in. Just a little something to give some perspective, because, it's hard to sometimes see how far we've come, is that I first got involved in late 2005. So it was post the 2005 session. I was at a political meeting. I met the executive director, Joshua Schimberg, at the time, and his wife at this meeting. And I was like, I like cannabis. These are all amazing things. I like to volunteer for stuff. I magically have free time. And so I started volunteering with the group, and I started doing my first legislative visits during the 2007, 2009 sessions. And I remember the first time I sat down with a staffer in an office that is now somewhat a champion of this issue. And that staffer and a veteran and I sat down, and the staffer, straight-faced, said to this veteran, but you are just using cannabis to get high, right? I had to be like, we will not murder this kind man. We will stand up. We will leave this room. We will walk away from the situation. But I just want to highlight, like, that's where we were at. We were at, people were like, you just want to get high. People were laughing at patients in the hallways. It was not cute. Okay. And now, we have super majorities in both of the chambers, and we have, not an amazing program, but it is getting better. And to reflect back, back in 2015, when Senator Menendez drafted that kind of like what I like to call a comprehensive program. Maybe it's not ideal, but it's super good and better than what we have. We're pretty close to it now as far as conditions go. I think, HIV/AIDS, sickle cell, and a few other things are not included from that original list that we had been working towards. And so the real hurdle is the understanding of the THC. And that takes a lot of education. People are like, well, legislators in particular, well, we changed it from 0.5% THC to 1% THC. I mean, we doubled the THC. You did not double the THC, okay? That is not how this works. It is currently 0.5 and will be 1% by weight, right? So that means that if you have, for example, I love this example, valerian root is what Valium is based off of. So you might care if you have 5% valerian root tea, you know how sleepy it might make you, but whenever you take your Valium, you just want your tiny pill with your whatever milligrams in it. You don't want to have to take a whole bunch of extra stuff. And so essentially what that restriction is it means that you have to take this much filler for this much medicine. So the doctors can still prescribe large amounts of THC to their patients, but their patients are having to ingest a lot of carrier oil or whatever substrate it is that they expand it across, right? Whether it be a gummy or whatever. And it also makes it more expensive because you have to buy a lot more product. So this is why the THC percentage is important, because I think that patients, rather than drinking a half a cup of oil to get their prescription for the day, would like to take like a tiny spoonful. I think that would be better. So I just wanted to highlight that I think that that's the big education push that we're going to have to make during the interim. I went down a rabbit hole. Okay, I'm going to check one last time for any more questions and see if you guys have anything else that you want to add. I don't see any more. Let's see. Do you guys have any over here? You guys, we did all of the things, all of the questions. You want to close us out, Carlos?
Yeah, definitely. So right, I just want to thank everybody once again for being here in attendance, watching us on Facebook and otherwise. And I want to thank our panelists. Everybody here was amazing. I want to thank everybody for their leadership in the community and for rallying the message out to everybody out there. So yeah, with that said, fingers crossed, we'll see everybody next month virtually and at Flamingo Cantina. So yeah. All right, we'll see y'all, everybody. Thank y'all.